Question number one, we're going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars and Nick Foles, who was benched this past weekend after a really putrid performance. So, Storm, do you think the Jags made a mistake in signing Nick Foles this offseason?
No, I think their mistake is not giving the poor man a chance. Come on. He got hurt the first game, and then you only gave him a game and a half to try to come back and find his own way, and then you bench him right away. Doug Marrone's just trying to coach for his job, I think, at this point. Put Minshew back in. That's what the people want. I just don't think they gave him a good enough chance.
Yeah, I think it is a mistake, but it's not Nick Foles' fault. That's
a good way to look at it. It's
really not Nick Foles' fault. Obviously, the injury couldn't have been predicted, but hindsight is 20/20. You wish you wouldn't have signed him that big, and then he gets injured right away. But also, he has not been put in an ideal situation to thrive, which when he was successful in Philadelphia, kind of all the pieces were in place. He had the skill position players. He had a defense that really was the heart and soul of the team, and he had a great play caller. He does not have that in Jacksonville. And I'm sorry, he's not the type of quarterback that will take a team that's just like so-so and bring them over the top and make them a dominant team. He's the type of guy you bring in if you're right on the cusp of being really good and you just need him to make a couple of plays a game.
He would have been perfect for Minnesota.
Absolutely, would have been perfect for Minnesota, a team like that, but that's not where Jacksonville is. And then lastly, the Jags, I don't think, knew what they had in Gardner Minshew. I think right now, looking at it, they wish they would have kept him on the cheap, developed him, spent the money elsewhere on the roster. So not Nick Foles' fault, but they probably regret it a little bit. Question number 2. What's your reaction to Freddie Kitchens going out to the movie theaters wearing a T-shirt that said Pittsburgh started it right before he went to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers?
Whatever. I mean, the guy could do what he wants. I think it's funny. I think it's a little immature. I know he said his excuse was lame. His daughter bought it. He didn't think anybody would see him in the movie theater. Dude, you're the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. People are going to know who you are.
What are you talking about? You're taking pictures with people. It's right there.
I know. So, I mean, he can do whatever he wants. That was his choice. They got spanked. Whatever. Yeah, that's all there is, really.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants. Doesn't mean it's not dumb as hell, man. Like, what is this guy thinking? You're a first-year head coach. Your team is underperformed. There's already a ton of questions about your team's discipline and focus, and you're trying to barely cling to your last playoff hopes. And you're going to do this days before you go to Heinz Field after all the blowout with the Myles Garrett helmet. Like, what the hell do you think? This is stupid. It's the epitome of what Cleveland has been this year. Freddie Kitchens is a dope for doing this.
Does he get fired? Quick.
No, he does not get fired. I do not think he gets fired. I think they give him another year. Is Deshaun Watson back in the MVP conversation after that 4-touchdown performance against that Patriots defense?
No. It's Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson.
I 100% agree. I love Deshaun. He's MVP.
Whoa! I'm shocked. No. I am actually shocked.
Are you?
I am.
I can be objective from time to time. I'm not always biased. Like I said, I love Deshaun. I think he is one of the biggest game changers on any team in the NFL. He is an MVP quality player, but he lost his shot when he put up that stinker against Baltimore. Like you said, it's Lamar and Russell and nobody else.
I thought you put that question in there just so you could get your boy back on the stage.
I did not. I did not. Still love you, Deshaun. Maybe next year. I cashed out my FanDuel bet for him, though. I made a couple bucks, but I was like, my Russell Wilson one's still in there. I put down small wagers on futures for them, but. Anyway, another question that you probably think I planted in here for my own personal reasons.
I know, let's go through these.
Did the Rams show that they can still make the playoffs after that dominant win against the Cardinals?
No, I mean, what's their schedule? They play Dallas, they have to play Seattle again, they play San Fran one more time. I mean, that's a tough 3-game stretch. Basically have to win out at that point. Unfortunately, that beat down by Baltimore wrote their season off.
Yeah, I agree with you. First of all, the game was against the Cardinals, who they got terrible defense. Vance Joseph is a terrible coordinator. They should score 34 points on them with that offense, and their defense had a good game. I'll give them that, but they didn't actually solve their problems. We're not going to see that type of performance against a quality team. And like you said, they've got a really tough schedule. They're going to have to hope that the Vikings slide a couple of games and the Vikings schedule is significantly easier. Nope, the Rams are not going to make the playoffs. They're going to be a game behind, get a mid-level draft pick. Although, no, they don't even have a draft pick this year.
Not for like the next 4 years.
Never mind. Next question. Here's a fun one. What's your reaction to Joshua Shaw's suspension for betting on NFL games?
Did you see what came up today and how they found out?
Yes, I did, because he made no effort to hide.
This dude puts professional football player in his occupation when he bet against his team or on his team. I forget if it was against the Cardinals or on the Cardinals in a parlay bet. That's how he got busted. How dumb are you? We should have seen this coming, though, with the way the legalization of sports betting is evolving before our very eyes. Lucky for guys like me and you. Unlucky for guys like Josh Shaw or whatever else his name is, Josh Shaw. So, but it was hilarious. I think it's funny.
I was at a loss for words when I started to look at the details of this. Let me take a second. So, first of all, just dumb. So dumb. First of all, like you said, he made no effort to disguise his identity in Vegas, put professional football player on the application. So, strike number one. Second, he did a parlay including a game that his team was in. Like, even Pete Rose knew not to bet on his own squad. Third, he bet against his team. He bet against him. He bet against him against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And lastly, he lost. He lost the bet. He did all this and he loses money. And I get it. You're on IR. You're bored, but find something else to do. Play video games. Bet on basketball. Do
he literally could have put any other occupation in there but professional football
do a better
player.
job. Lie to Las Vegas. Do something else. You can't do something else to entertain yourself, but you know what? I guess he might have a problem because his parlay was on second half spreads.
Hey, don't you insult the second half spread bets.
But you got to think, this guy isn't just like, oh, I'm going to place one bet this week. He's been doing this forever. I'm surprised it took him this long to catch him. Anyway, last question, and we kind of already touched on it in our last segment, but do you think Mike Tomlin deserves to win Coach of the Year?
I absolutely think he should be in consideration. There are a lot of good candidates for Coach of the Year this year. You have Tomlin, you have Harbaugh just in the AFC North alone.
That's true.
Then you have Shanahan, you have you hate to say it, Pete Carroll. People like you and I didn't have this much faith in Seattle.
Very true. I didn't even think of it.
You know, players so that's four coaches right there. And then how can you forget about Sean McDermott, what he's doing in Buffalo? So it's going to be a fun race. Well, fun for coaches, but yeah, he deserves to be in consideration. I'm not sold that he should completely have it yet.
I don't know, man. It's tough. You look at all these coaches and the rosters that they have and what they've done, and who has done more with less on their roster than Mike Tomlin. And like I said before, they lost their two best offensive players in the offseason and then their franchise quarterback in game 2. And they are poised to get into the playoffs right now. If they miss the playoffs, I think he's out of it. But if they squeak in, I know there's a ton of other good candidates. But I don't know how you can't give it to him, man. What other guy could keep a team steadfast like Mike Tomlin like this? We saw Shanahan without Garoppolo. They were crap. We saw Harbaugh, I guess last year with Lamar Jackson picked it up, and I get it. But he's got Greg Roman as well, who gets some of the credit. And then McDermott, I'll give it to you. The Bills are exceeding expectations, and I think he would be number 2 for me behind Tomlin. But yeah, if the Steelers make the playoffs, I don't know how you don't give it to him.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. I just think it's just such a conversation. It's not a sure thing yet because there's still.
Oh yeah, there's a couple games left. But for me, if he makes the playoffs, he wins Coach of the Year. Honestly, it'll be fun to be in Pittsburgh if they end up sliding in the playoffs. Mike Tomlin gets that recognition. It'll be a fun time to be living here.
I mean, you got to think Tomlin still hasn't put up his Tomlin clunker when he plays down to the level of some of the competition.
That's true. Last year when they blew it against Oakland.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. They are lacking in talent, so they show up at every game and know that we got to work harder to have any shot at this. The past couple years, they had so much talent that they would go into a game thinking that they could just go on cruise control and win, and that's when you got those clunkers. Anyway, excellent job by Tomlin and the Steelers organization there.